Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we have some more Old World news. I'm actually really happy about this. It's been making my Mondays much better to get these weekly drops. So, Old World Almanack, get into the right headspace for morale and psychology. This is going to be some interesting details that we're going to want to read over, so we're going to start right away. A battlefield, no matter what the average bestigor might claim, is not a happy place to be in the Old World. What with marauding bands of bickering orcs, frenzied chaos warriors bearing the gifts of the gods, and terrifying dragons, both living and dead, all rampaging around the domains of man. This is not a good place to be a lonely Imperial trooper waggling a halberd. And we got some really classic old school art there. That's really cool. God, Beastman art is just really nice. Today we're going to buckle up our most ergonomic sabatons and make a break for freedom on our way to discuss on how morale and psychology work in Warhammer the Old World. So yeah, this is going to be a pretty interesting article, I think, mostly because morale is so important. But yeah, let's jump right into the morale section. Last week we discussed the nitty-gritty of combat, seeing what happens once the spittle-flecked Chaos Warrior crashes into the ever-so-slightly quivering spear you're holding. As we saw, it's quite rare for a round of melee to end in a draw, and where there's a loser, there are consequences. The first of these is the break test, a leadership role modified by how badly you lost the combat, with 3 outcomes: break and flee, fall back in good order, and give ground. So once again, we get the same example that we had last week. Actually, I was about to say yesterday for some reason, but yeah, it's simple enough to learn. Obviously, this is with 2d6. I mean, it's a pretty good chart, and this is something that you'll want to have as a cheat sheet. This is definitely one of those things that you want to keep around because it'll just make your life a lot easier. Let's continue into the next sections for morale. In the first case, the losing unit turns and runs in the opposite direction from whatever caused it to flee, and whichever enemy unit had the stronger unit strength if it was multiple combat. Okay, so if you're surrounded essentially from 2 sides, you'll need to run into another direction, all the usual stuff, okay? They run 2d6, pivoting only to avoid impassable terrain. Oh, that's different, because some cases, depending on where you played, some TOs would say if you were going to hit impassable terrain, you would hit impassable terrain and slightly take damage, or you'd have to wait another turn to move. It's a pretty interesting thing, but it's nice to see it like properly written out here. But let's continue. And if any part of the fleeing unit crosses a battlefield edge, it is destroyed. Yeah, typical thing, right? If the enemy gives chase and rolls high enough on the 2d6 to make contact, the fleeing unit is also destroyed. Same thing as before. This kind of sucked if you had a unit of Black Orcs against a unit of Clan Rats and the Clan Rats won and then overrun you. You might wonder why I've said this in multiple videos. It's because it's happened to me before. Let's continue. If they run through another enemy unit, they take additional wounds as they go. Okay, so taking it as dangerous terrain. If they run through a friendly unit, however, they're safe. But that unit must now bear the brunt of the pursuer's charge. In short, try not to break free. Okay, interesting. In some cases, again, depending on the TO, this would be the unit that wasn't fleeing would have to take a leadership test because they would be fleeing. Maybe that's completely gone. Again, we're going to have to wait and see till we see the full rules because we're not really seeing anything. This is just like kind of like teasers and so on. I tell you what, it would be helpful. But they've got their, in short, try not to break and flee. I mean, yeah, no shit. Let's continue. On the other hand, a unit that falls back in good order is still beating a hasty retreat. But they've not yet lost that fighting spirit. They can discard the low of the 2 dice when they flee, and they automatically rally and reform at the end, ready to receive the charge of the pursuer or hit back in the next turn. Okay, that's pretty good. Not losing everything. I mean, if you're just going to fall back a little bit, that's actually quite good, rather than, again, losing a full unit of Black Orcs to a bunch of Clan Rats. Okay, we got some classic Chaos Warrior art in the middle, which I really need to start painting up my Chaos Warriors. This is based on the older ones. You might remember the older Chaos Warriors, the ones that always were squatting for some reason. Ah, such memories. Anyways, let's continue. Giving ground is the best result when losing combat. The loser simply step back 2 inches, terrain permitting, okay. Attempting to put some much needed space between them and the foe, unless of course the winner chooses to follow up and press their advantage, in which combat continues the next turn. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like that. I mean, if you're going to be the aggressor, you're probably going to want to push into them anyway, so you don't give them the chance to charge you. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. Rather than just deleting a unit, this is so much better. Clearly the deleting stuff is still there, but it feels a lot better, I guess, from what I'm reading here. But yeah, the last little bit is running away isn't the only thing on the minds of the rank and file of the old world. There's also a whole world of psychology. We're going to get to that in just a second then. So going into psychology, all the classic psychological effects are back. Fear, terror, stupidity, animosity, oh god, frenzy, unbreakable, stubborn, and hatred. Okay, all cool except for animosity. I mean, if you played Orcs and Goblins, you'll know, believe me. But this is cool. While in previous games, psychology was separate from the rest of the universal special rules, it's all now found in one place in the core rulebook. Thank you! Thank you! Thank you so much! This is just going to be so easier to look around. For those of you who never played Warhammer Fantasy, a lot of the rules were separated into so many different locations, in separate books sometimes too, in your respective army books, so you had to like jump back and forth. So this is good. But yeah, let's continue. We'll be looking at other USRs in a future Almanack, but there's time this week to see how a few of these work. And before anything, we've got some really nice artwork of a witch hunter over here. Absolutely lovely. I mean, it's so cool, man. It is so cool. It's nice seeing all this artwork come back to light and be, you know, relevant again. Alright, let's continue with the written stuff. Units causing fear, for instance, will have enemies quaking in their boots. If an enemy with lower unit strength wishes to charge a fear-causing unit, it must first take a leadership test or its charge will fail. Already in combat with a scary regiment of skeleton warriors, take a leadership test each round or suffer -1 to hit. Well, at least it's going to make the skeleton warriors a little better. Terror is even worse. If you are charged by a beast with this effect, you have to take a leadership test just to be able to declare a charge reaction. If you fail, you flee. Yeah, that's pretty much the same. And that's before any dice are rolled to see if the charge succeeds. Terror also applies an extra -1 penalty to opposing units' leadership characteristic when taking break tests, making a break and flee outcome that much more likely. Okay, makes sense, makes sense. Now, what we do have here is pretty tasty. We've got the rules for the Dragon Ogre Shagoff. Movement 7, weapon skill 6. I was looking at the ballistic skill, but then again, they don't have ranged weapons. Strength 6, toughness 5, wounds 6. Initiative 4, 5 attacks, leadership 9. That's actually pretty tasty stats. This is looking at it in the Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition style mindset. Armor Bane -2, so that means that -2 to the to an armor save. Armored Hide 2, so that means what, a 5-up armor save. Close Order, we don't know what that is. Enscrolled weapons, magical weapons, immune to psychology, large target again, stomp attacks D3+1, storm call, special rule, terror, and the quickening storm. So far, these look like pretty good stats. Obviously, we've not seen any other stats for Warhammer the Old World just yet, but if you look at it in the perspective of, say, 8th edition, this actually looks fairly tasty. 6 wounds also on a Shagoff is pretty good overall. Now the main thing is I really hope that these models get updated at some point because the Shagoff is showing its age. Not as badly as the Dragon Ogres, which you think they would have been updated in Age of Sigmar, but then again, they're kind of slow to update stuff, right? Alright, so we don't really have too much to go for here, so we can talk about Frenzy. Finally, we can touch on Frenzy. This gives models in a unit an extra attack, and also immunity from fear and terror. A frenzied unit, however, must always charge if able to, and can never choose to flee from a charge. Frenzy is generally quite good if you're playing like a Khorne-heavy Chaos Warrior army. You're going to get Frenzy a lot, especially I think Beastmen will probably have a lot. I mean, they did in 8th edition. Well, technically that was the 7th edition rulebook, but you know what I mean. A lot of that stuff will probably be the same. So if they had Frenzy in Warhammer Fantasy, they'll have Frenzy in Old World most likely. And obviously with the Chaos Warriors, if Mark of Khorne is still a thing, it will give them Frenzy, which you want to do. You want additional hand weapons for an extra attack, if that's going to be the same thing, and then also Frenzy for an extra attack other than that. And what we can jump into is Dark Magic. So there is a spell here This is Battle Lust. Rage builds within those near to the dark magic, filling them with a terrible lust for bloodshed. This is an enchantment, casting value of 9+, range of 12 inches, and it gives them frenzy and hatred to all enemies. Hatred back in the day was basically re-rolling, so you could attack essentially again if you failed. I'm assuming it's going to play the same thing. Yeah, fairly happy. Honestly, everything is sounding like Warhammer Fantasy. I know there's people going to complain just because I said that, but it's good, right? This is good. So yeah, smaller article, but we do have some information here. Next week, we'll click our fingers and an entire article on magic will miraculously appear before your eyes. And while the arcane arts no longer have their own phase, you'll discover that spells are still impactful on the battlefields of the old world as ever. Okay, I mean, a whole article devoted to magic is going to be good. That means that we're going to be able to see what's there. Everything's changed, that's for sure. We've already had details pretty much in every single phase. But yeah, I feel like that's going to be quite needed because some people are confused. I'm a little bit curious myself and a slightly bit confused too. Hopefully they'll start confirming what laws of magic are still here. As of you might remember, there was mention of a law of demonology. I'm not sure if that means that we're going to lose out on the dedicated god laws or if this is just something undivided. I have some weird feeling that Daniel existing in Total War Warhammer 3 has kind of brought Undivided back into this situation, which is just going to be bizarre. I mean, it's already back for Age of Sigmar on 40k, but you know what I mean. It just doesn't really make too much sense in fantasy, unless it's done well, so I'm going to keep my mind open. So far, I'm really happy with what we've been able to read. I'm so excited, man. Every single Monday, this actually gives me something to look forward to. I really can't wait to see the magic stuff, and I can't wait to see more. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. Ah, my god, I'm so happy. I'll see you all again soon.